am. And at words now, it's been quite a few months since GE13 was concluded, and there is still a public outcry on its electoral fraud, also irregularities. There's a lot that's been said. And recently, the People's Tribunal, that's one that's being formed, and there will be a hearing on the 18th of September till the 22nd. So these few days are very much anticipated by the Malaysian public to see the outcome. With us to tell us more is Ivy JOSIAH, who is also Executive Director of WAO Women's Aid Organization.
Right.
Hi, Ivy.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you so much. And joining us is also resident guest, Ernie Chen. Now, how is the organizing committee different from the People's Tribunal? Or why is there a separate committee, so to speak?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, first let's start with, we have BERSE, right? We have BERSE, which is a coalition of over 84 organizations, of civil society organizations, of which Women's Aid is one of the 84 endorsing organizations. So this coalition, called BERSE 2.0, is steered by a committee called the Steering Committee. So that Steering Committee, of course we all know the chair, the co-chair, Dato' Ambika, and of course our beloved Samad Said. So the organizing committee of the People's Tribunal is a subcommittee from the 84 organizations. So when the civil society groups got together right after elections, we said, look, we need to do many, many things to keep up the momentum. And there were so many allegations of fraud and irregularities and all kinds of stories, right? There were so many different stories. So we said, let's form a committee, an organizing committee, and let's have a People's Tribunal. So there are different separate committees. The Steering Committee is like in charge, but we are an organizing committee independent of the Steering Committee, but of course gets the mandate from the Steering Committee to organize the People's Tribunal, which is an event, which is a strategy on its own. And the People's Tribunal, of course, is made up of several other committees too, all working independently. So, for example, the legal team is headed by, Professor Gurjal Singh Nija, who's quite a famous, a person because he's also the head prosecutor for the War Crimes Tribunal. So he's got his legal team, and they are going on to collect the evidence. The organizing committee doesn't get involved in telling him what to do or what the groups should do, but we facilitate, the process.
So where will this tribunal be held, and who funds the whole entire tribunal?
It's a good question. The funds come from the public, really. You must understand BERSE 2.0, whenever we have any events, whether it's a forum or whether it's a public demonstration or whether it's a memorandum or a press conference or even a report that we come up with, the monies come from the public. So basically, we just put a call out and people just put money into the account, generous individuals who donate towards the event.
And are these individuals pro towards the opposition or pro towards the current existing government, or how does that work? How do we know?
But all we know is that they are BERSE supporters. They are people and individuals and civil society members who want a free and fair electoral process. They want electoral reform. So I think it serves everybody's purpose to make sure that there is an election process which is fair.
I think a lot of people have been shouting for a fair electoral process, which we do want that as well as Malaysian citizens who are voting. The fact of the matter is that we don't see us going anywhere. What are your thoughts on that? Are we really going to achieve anything with this tribunal?
Because even before the GE13, there were a lot of shouts and public outcry for this.
For me, being a women's rights activist, I know. I bring my experience as a women's rights activist into this civil and political processes. This is about civil and political rights, right? And I know as a women's rights activist, everything comes to you very, very slowly. You have to walk an extra mile to get that one little, win and one little, law reform and so on. So for me, when I look at the BERSE movement, and I call it a civil society movement, of amazing imagination, and I'm so passionate about it because that particular movement, never before, I keep telling Ambika this, and I said, the steering committee must be very proud because this is a civil society movement that not only concerns Malaysians, but imagine Malaysians living overseas in over 60 countries. I mean, it moves me really. they were so passionate, they're still so passionate about Malaysia that they formed these various initiatives in all these countries. I was in New York at the time for the first, first birthday demonstration, and I was in New York and I saw Malaysians coming out there on that day to make sure that they're also part of the process. So, a lot of voices, a lot of noise. What are the gains? Well, for one thing, overseas voting. You can now, if you're living overseas, you can vote. That came about because of birthday.
So is this movement going to be dying off anytime soon? Because what we have noticed is that Black 505, everyone got very excited, everyone was present. It was like a superstar show for Anwar Ibrahim. And Bersih was a fantastic show for Dato' Ambiga. And now we kind of feel the Rakyat is kind of getting comfortable again. Are we going to have a Bersih 4 that is going to bring up the whole entire momentum of the movement again?
Okay, two things. I wanted to also just add on that some of the other wins for the Bersih movement was to get the indelible ink. Okay, albeit there are so many issues with that, but I can see small gains. Now, I don't agree with you when you say it was a show for Dato' Ambiga. It is a show led by Dato' Ambiga on behalf of Bersih. It's not for her. This is not about Ambiga. It's not about,
Anwar Ibrahim, perhaps?
I'm not part of Black 505. I'm not an organizing committee member of that, but I can clearly tell you that it is, for where Bersih is concerned, the movement was really about a people's movement, and we were very fortunate to have a very, dynamic leader such as Ambiga. Or for that matter, Pak Samad too. I think Pak Samad is also we must not forget, is led by, and another wonderful person in that whole group and steering committee is Maria Chin, who is a very good and very well-known women's rights activist.
So all these characters.
So there are really interesting, dynamic leaders within the movement. 505, is it for Anwar Ibrahim? Why not? I mean, he's a politician. He's got a lot to say about whether he, in terms of how the elections went. Of course, PKR and all the political parties have a stake in the elections. They will be talking about electoral reform because it helps them, right? So anybody who has a stake in it, whether you're a politician, whether you're a member of parliament or an adun or a voter, we all have a stake in making sure the electoral process is free and fair.
But Barisan Nasional doesn't see it that way, do they?
Well, the good news is that during the time of the campaign period, one MCA member of parliament, and I really apologize because I've forgotten his name, he actually did invite Bersih to come and speak to his constituency. So, it may not be, they may have felt, many of the Barisan Nasional component parties may have felt, or if we were to be linked with Bersih somehow, it would mean, we are anti-government. But yes, there was this one MCA person, and I really apologize for not remembering his name. I should remember his name, but he did invite. So, because Barisan Nasional sees Bersih, and even the ruling government sees Bersih
as being aligned to the opposition?
As being aligned to the opposition, as being critical. But again, this is nothing new to me. As a women's rights activist, every time I'm critical about the police, or I'm critical about the Ministry of Women, or critical about some government policy, they really they shoot the messenger, and they go, oh, you must be anti-government. You don't like us, do you? And we go, well, I do respect you, but you know what? I'm here for the women.
Should you be getting involved in politics more so that you can champion the women's a lot more by being perhaps the Minister of Women's, and would that be better if you were able to control the policies and rewrite the policies to support the women?
I would rather play the role of being involved in the political processes. I don't want to be involved in politics. I've never had, for myself, I don't want to be a politician. I do not want to be a member of parliament. I do not want to be an adun. Maybe one day I might want to be a town councillor. I like the idea of local elections, where you're taking care of your own, your own neighborhood. But I want to be involved in the political processes. I want to be advocating for change so that I can say, you know what, I have helped to make sure that this country is a better place to live in, that this country is fair, it's democratic, it's good for women, it's good for men, and especially good for women.
Okay.
So, and of course, who you want in parliament is important for women too. So so that's where I'm coming from.
What are the three very important things to you for the women of Malaysia that is fundamentally not even provided or given to the women in Malaysia today?
I think one of my biggest concerns would definitely be violence against women. I think we still do not get enough protection. We do not have a coordinated response when it comes to domestic violence.
Still, is it, Ivy? Because you've been saying this for the
I
past
know,
30
you've been
over
interviewing
years,
me for
right?
how many years, and I
30
keep
over
saying the
years.
same thing.
Yes.
It's like I said, this is why I kind of like, I don't get despondent when I don't have a huge success in front of me. It's very, very big, small baby steps,
But is it getting better?
Well, it is getting better, but it's not necessarily getting where it should be, And so I think, if you make a police report, there are some police stations which are very good, and the others which is not so good. Getting a protection order takes a long time.
How do we really protect these women? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, I've watched documentaries where women who get abused by most likely their husbands have a tendency to go back to the husband after the whole process is completed with. And that's one of the reasons why those domestic violence does not stop. More so because of the women continuously, after the report is made, they go to the shelter, but somehow or another they go back to the husband again, and it continues. I'm not sure, but that's what I read, that's what I have watched. Correct me if I'm wrong.
And that's why the police perhaps have that attitude. Like if you go to make a police report, they don't really take you seriously. I mean, this could be one of the reasons.
There are women who do return to their husbands, but there are also many women who do not return to their husbands. Okay, so it's easy to sort of look at the 20% or so women who do go back to their husbands, because women are brought up to believe that, he will change. Because they still love him. They just want the abuse to stop and the hurt to stop, but they still love him. They go back for the sake of the children. They also go back because they are fearful for their lives. Okay, so this is why the protection systems was important. The majority of them do not go back. The majority of them do want to be safe. They want to be protected. Just this morning, I received a text from Adun to say that I have somebody in my constituency who's saying that she's been living in this constituency. Her husband is still harassing her. She's not getting any help with the police. She's not able to transfer her children out to another school because the father keeps coming and harassing the children for money because he's an alcoholic.